All right, hey folks, it's Faz here from Faz Lifts. Today I'm going to be talking about the Holy Grail, losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time. This is going to be a controversial one, so strap yourself in. Right, firstly, thank you for making it onto my channel. If you have any questions of your own, please do pop them in the comments and I'll get around to the best ones in videos of their own. Or if you have any comments about this video, no doubt there'll be a few, then please pop them down below. Anyway, moving on to the topic of the day, I wanted to discuss my experiences with myself and as a coach of body recomposition, and that is the simultaneous building muscle and losing fat, the Holy Grail. Many people say is absolutely impossible. Many people say it's a waste of time. I'm going to explain to you how not only is it possible, but it actually should be an expected outcome, not just an outcome you hope for, and is my preferred outcome in a preferred method in a lot of circumstances. So let's go right into this. So firstly, this is the summary of the issue. The scenario whereby you simultaneously gain muscle and lose fat is often said to be impossible outside of specific scenarios, like in ranked beginners or people coming in after a layoff or those who begin anabolics. I am not talking about either of those three. So this is not a video on those groups of people. Okay, I am literally talking about your average guy like myself or you or a guy and girl at home who are listening to this, who's past the beginner stage, has had some beginner gains, is training consistently, and obviously is not using any extra supplements. So that's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about those people, those groups. For those groups, yeah, sure, recomposition is perfectly possible, and I'm sure everyone acknowledges that. I'm talking about your average guy or girl who's been training for a while and has been on the bulk and cut cycles in the past. Now, the reality is that it's not only possible to recomposition, but it's to be expected. Much of the pushback on recompositioning comes from a misunderstanding of expectations of how much muscle we can actually gain per year, and a misunderstanding of how the body actually works. So I'm going to break those down first, and then I'm going to explain how to recomposition. And also perhaps we'll touch on why it's preferable. So firstly, let's look at the evidence from the research. Now, I've picked out these research papers simply because they are research papers on moderate to advanced athletes. Like, these guys are not beginners. These guys are people who are well trained already, and they have a reasonably consistent situation. So all of a sudden they have been exposed to a dietary method whereby their calories are roughly at maintenance and they have recompositioned. So this was a study on elite gymnasts in 2012. They lost 2.6% body fat and gained 0.9 pounds of muscle in 30 days. Nothing outlandish, but fantastic. NCAA football players recomposition in 10 weeks. They train between 4 to 5 times a week. And these rugby players recomposition in 6 weeks. The caveat there was higher protein intake overall. So these are studies which are done on real people, at real intermediate to advanced people who are consistent, are past the beginner stage, and whose supplemental status hadn't changed, whatever it was, right? So there's that. Now, let's move on to the myths. Firstly, myth one. Myth one is that this will kill your gains. So I want to just point out here that for those who are saying this will kill your gains, there's two main counter arguments here. Firstly, muscle gain outside of the initial 10 to 20 pounds of beginner gains is slow. Okay. If you say to someone, look, I'm going to recomposition, and they shout back at you and say, well, you're going to just slow down your gains. It's like, who's gaining muscle fast outside the beginner stage anyway? No one is. No one's gaining more than a few pounds of muscle outside of beginner stage anyway, regardless. So it's not killing your gains. And it's generally acknowledged that people in the beginner stage, when they're gaining a large amount of muscle tissue, can actually recomposition. So why would that just automatically switch off the moment you are past the beginner stage? It doesn't. It slows down, sure, but then everything slows down when you're past the beginner stage. That's the point. And I think this point is also somewhat skewed by the misconception that people are just going to automatically gain muscle on a bulk and cut cycle. That doesn't happen either. Like, if you want proof of that, just look around at the gym. there are, or even at your own training history, when you've had a bad year of training and you've not gained much muscle or any muscle, the reality is that there are people, men and women all around the world right now who are trying desperately to gain muscle year in, year out, doing bulking and cutting cycles, and they are failing. Okay, failing because of poor training practices or inconsistency or whatever. But that's the same for people who try to recomposition. So the numbers get skewed when you're comparing that population of people. So, well, that guy, he's tried to recomposition. He failed to make any gains. Well, how much did you make this year? Not much either, right? So there are just as many people failing on both approaches. Bulking and cutting, however, gives you the impression of movement. The scale moves. Yeah, scale moves. You gain more leverage. You might be able to temporarily gain more strength. It can be a false perception because once you're dieted down, it may not result in as much lean mass as you thought. And then you also have the potential muscle loss when you diet down, if you're dieting down, particularly harsh. So in no circumstance does it automatically mean you're going to gain more muscle when you're bulking and cutting. Building muscle is a very, very slow, arduous process, regardless of how you do it. And you're not making it any easier on yourself by exposing your body to these massive fluctuations up and down in body weight. You want to keep things as consistent as possible while providing a robust training stimulus and a good diet. And that's what I'll be discussing in a moment. Myth number 2 is that you must be in a surplus to gain muscle, and you must be in a deficit to lose fat. This is the whole laws of thermodynamics, bro, kind of argument. Like, it's thermodynamics, bro. To build muscle, you got to be in a surplus. To cut fat, you got to be in a deficit. And that's a very simplistic way of looking at the body, which is a little bit more complicated than that. The body doesn't exist in states of just anabolic and catabolic. There are various compartments in the body, okay? We store fat, for example, for energy, right? And just to give you one very stark example before I explain this, what happens when somebody breaks a bone? Breaks a leg, for example. They go to hospital, eat hospital food, which might be far less than they're used to eating. Does their bone just not heal because they're really catabolic? No, it heals. You grow, right? If the stimulus is robust enough, you will grow in a deficit. And that's an extreme example, but I'm just going to break that down for you here. So building muscle requires the following things. So H2O, obviously, which comes from your diet, dietary protein, which comes from your diet, energy, which can come from your fat stores, and a robust training stimulus. Cutting body fat can come from an energy deficit, which comes from your diet. So the energy part of that equation is where the difference is. So this all sounds well and good. So the next question is, well, you've told me that, Faz. You've said it's very slow. You've said that there are different compartments in the body. So much are responsible for building muscle. So much are responsible for the energy for daily movements and for building muscle as well. Well, how do we actually do it then? What's the score? The score is quite simply this. Your calories should be just below maintenance. Now, with your calories just below maintenance, your body will continuously pull from your fat stores, okay, because you're in a deficit, right? You should indefinitely lose fat. And then you optimize everything else. Your protein intake remains higher, and you provide the body with a robust training stimulus. This is one of the reasons why I generally favor higher volume and more time in the gym. Not because higher volume is better than higher intensity, but quite simply, many people are not capable of producing the level of intensity required to grow muscle. So I would rather just blanket safety measure, add in more volume to compensate for that. So, but either way, you've just got to provide a robust training stimulus. As a safe catch-all, I generally favor higher volumes, at least something like 15 sets per body part per week is what I generally favor. So that can be accomplished quite well by 4 to 5 sessions per week. So slightly below maintenance while giving your body enough protein and providing a very strong training stimulus in the gym. And you must be able to demonstratively get better in the gym. So you must be doing more reps for the same weight, more weight for the same reps, and then recover adequately. If you can accomplish all of those things, you will indefinitely lose fat and gain muscle. There is no other alternative. If you take your bench press, for example, from 3 sets of 10 for 100 kilos to 3 sets of 10 for 110 kilos, and it takes you a year to do that, and you do that at the same or slightly less body weight, you will have recompositioned. And you may well have gained the same amount of muscle as if in that time period you had done a massive bulk and a massive cut, but without the pain of the cut and the pain of the bulk and dragging your body and your health through the mud with a bulk, and then psychologically twisting your mind with a cut and low calories, with just that nice level of consistency so you can actually enjoy your training and focus on life and your relationships and your business and whatever. So that is how. Now, here are some of my closing thoughts. So the misconception that recomposition is not possible stems from the usual lack of gains people experience. So these are not exclusive to people who are trying to recomposition, and they are seen in people who bulk and cut as well. There are plenty of people out there who bulk and cut who experience zero gains. Okay, let's not shove this on the people who try and recomposition and do it poorly as well. And also the misconception comes from the fact that gaining muscle outside of the beginner stage in naturals is really slow anyway. Like, it's going to be slow. You know, you might not gain much on your bench press this year. I'm sorry, but it's just the reality of things once you pass the beginner stage. Other misconception stems from just poor dietary adherence and poor training in general. People just not delivering a very solid, robust training stimulus in the gym, and then just being inconsistent with their diet. Now, if you can actually satisfy all these criteria, so if you have a reasonably steady enough life that you can predict when you're going to eat, when you're going to train, when you're going to go to the gym, you have a predictable life, you're an adult, you may have your responsibilities, your family, etc. But if you have a reasonably well thought out schedule, like you're not like going to be driving to Vegas on Saturday and getting back on Monday kind of thing on a regular basis. Like if you have a regular steady life and you can actually deliver a good strong stimulus in the gym, you're able to go to the gym multiple times per week, you're able to make sure you have a consistently high amount of protein throughout the day, you're able to do all those things, recompositioning may well be better for you rather than go on this roller coaster of body weight where your body weight and your body fat shoots up, followed by cuts. Then you have the uncomfortable bulk, eating loads of tasty, delicious food, followed by the uncomfortable cut. And if you are the type of person who just wants a nice, steady rate of muscle gain, just to complement your nice, steady life, then understand that that's quite a few people. That's me as well. I don't want to be bulking and cutting anymore, so that's why I don't do it. I just indefinitely progress and maintain and recomposition. That for sure describes a lot of people in my experience. They don't want to do these massive bulks and cuts. They would rather just enjoy their life with a reasonable amount of food, stick to a great level of consistency, and they have a steady enough schedule whereby they can do that. That's what I would recommend to those people. It is to be able to put that option on the table, because too often in this industry have people just shouted from the rooftops and said, it's impossible. You're just going to be maintaining and wasting your time. Well, it's not, you know. So there you go. That is my contribution, and hopefully you guys find it interesting. I realize that it's probably going to be a bit of a controversial one, and it's probably going to get me some dislikes and comments, but there you go. I'm speaking from my experience. I'm speaking from my experience as a coach, and of those are my clients. So that's generally my preferred method for those circumstances. All right, folks. So I will just say before I leave that if you would like to work with me, if you'd like to actually do that, then there is a form in the description where you can get in contact with me. Also, subscribe. I'm trying to get my subscriber base to 1,000. Hopefully I'm providing you guys with some interesting content, and I will continue to do so. Take it easy, folks. Have a great